Welcome to a Quivr product update. I'm Steve Drost. As always, we've got Will Kaplan joining me, both, of course, from the Quivr team. What is Quivr? We're the CRM built by financial advisors for financial advisors, where our objective is simple. How can we help you run your business at peak efficiency? Now, Will, usually these product update ones are about like a specific feature or maybe an enhancement we made. For example,
Right.
the workflow engine and integration, something like that. But it's kind of a big time at Quivr right now, because believe it or not, we have been working together for a year now.
I know. Time flies, right? It's so fast.
So my wife, one thing she always jokes about is that I have a personality that doesn't resonate with many people. You either like me or hate me pretty much right away. So because you made it a year, I assume we're doing well. But no, we're super happy to have you on the team. And today we wanted to just reflect back on the last year, right? What has happened in Quivr in the last year? And kind of to jump the gun, the biggest thing I want to do is thank our users, because everything that we look at over the last year is only possible because of our users.
I would agree. I think it's also one of the biggest surprises that I've seen coming into this is, obviously I was excited about we've got this thing, we've got some ideas, we sort of know the direction we want to head, but the user community's been phenomenal. And we've gotten, I think, so many good ideas from them. And obviously, we'll probably end up talking about a couple of those, but like this very much feels like in that we're all working towards the same goal. And it also definitely feels like it's one of those things where I put something in, you put something in, the users put something in, and the sum is greater than the parts. Like it's a, I say this often, but like it's a 2 + 2 = 5 situation where what ends up coming out of it is greater. And I think that's fantastic, because what that ultimately means is that there's clients of advisory firms out there that are ultimately benefiting from this too, which that very much excites me.
Sure. In the early days of Quivr, I think I misinterpreted that feedback as complaints. I mean, I'm a perfectionist, probably with at least mild OCD. So when some of those things came in, it's like, man, is this not good enough? Like what's going on here? This works. This is great. Like this is what I wanted. What are you talking about? And then I realized, no, our users are our biggest cheerleaders. They're coming back with us. And I would say every single person genuinely wants us to succeed and genuinely wants our product to continue to get better and better. And it was a me issue. Once I was able to flip that switch and realize that we're on the same team, it's been really fun, like really, really fun. But before we get into the last year, I have to share the story of what our goal was when we first launched Quivr almost 3 years ago. And believe it or not, the what is that? The big, hairy, audacious goal, the BHAG or whatever it's called, was not building a CRM to this level. It wasn't. It was to get maybe 5 or 10 of my buddies to use the same platform, so we could share development costs, because I was tired of spending thousands of dollars building out Salesforce to get it to where I wanted it to go. So to look at that goal that I had about 3 years ago, and to look at where we are today with a 4.5 person team growing. I mean, we've 4x'd since you started. It blows my mind. So if you didn't know that, Will, that was my original goal. But we now look at, sorry, you can go.
No, I was just gonna say, like, it's so funny that you mentioned that, because like you and I end up lining up in so many places, just like in a weird way. And this is one of them. Like, I started a study group based on Salesforce for exactly the same reason. I was like, we all need this little thing. Why don't 5 or 6 of us get together? We'll feed each other ideas. We'll come out with this thing, and we can just kind of rely on it. And certainly some of that stuff is now filtering into Quivr as well. So it's like we have these two little tiny study groups that we want to like supercharge with this thing. And now we've got Quivr, which, it's starting to pop up in other places, and you see it like at T3, or you see it at XY net, XY planning. And like, that's been really special too.
For sure. And it all comes back to our users, right? Our little 2 study groups that have now bloomed into this beast that is Quivr. We got to start with the thank yous, right? I mean, if we look at our users, the biggest updates that we made in the last year, almost all of them are coming directly from our users, right? The workflow engine that we just pushed, 99% of those ideas came from users, right? We did that little workflow cohort with, what was it, 6 or 8 operations directors from different firms. Almost every feature in that came from them. How they wanted the conditional logic to work, how they wanted workflow insights to work, how they wanted the visibility into those workflows to work. All of that stuff came from our users. So thank you. Like, that's super cool. And you were mentioning some of the recognition. We won the best workflow engine through that T3 survey a few months ago, and none of these items were even in there. So I think that validates the fact that our original workflow engine was intuitive enough and simple enough to understand and to put to use. But then we supercharged that with all of these amazing ideas from people that, again, just want our product to be better.
And it's so funny because you were talking a minute ago about how like when we first started getting feedback from users, and I think this is part of it's coming in by email, so it's hard to read tone and like there's all that stuff. But like now our development team just pushed probably the largest update we've pushed since I've been on board. So at least in the last year, if not ever, in terms of just the pure size of an update, releasing this workflow engine, we're expecting like bedlam and mass panic in the streets and tickets start coming in. And most of the ticket things were like, hey, here's a little bug. Can you iron this out? But in almost every ticket that we got, there was I absolutely love this update. This is so good. That type of feedback. And I think that, our development team, we were taking some of that back to them to be like, hey, there's tickets coming in and they're all panicked, but being able to also share that feedback that we're getting from our users of like, hey, we really like this update. Like that's fun to share with them too, because they're in that exact same place that you were, which is like people are sending tickets. I've done something bad.
Yeah.
Whereas it's actually like people are sending tickets. You did something really good. We just need to make it like, there's this little adjustment or there's this little adjustment. Like, oh gosh, the one that we got, which was add a workflow name or something to the list. So I can like, it's not a big deal. It's a little tiny deal, but it's just to make it even better. They're sharing that, they're taking time to share like, hey, I love what this is. If you could just add this little additional adjustment to it, it would be even better than it was. Like, yeah, we love that stuff.
And
And
it's
I
cool
think
for
that
our
that's
development team to get that. So, like, thank you, all of you, for saying those things because our development team only hears the bad things. They only hear about bugs. They only hear about issues. They only hear about support cases that we have to escalate to them. They don't hear in office hours that this is really cool, but they don't hear that first part because and that's a me problem again. We're not sharing that with them as much. But right, that was awesome. I mean, another cool little story or anecdote of our users just being amazing was there was an AI tool that I wanted to integrate with. I'm not going to say their name, but I wanted to integrate with them. I got a meeting with them. We got about 75% to the way of completion. And then they just kind of stopped responding. And in our forums, I had told these users, because a lot of our users use this tool, probably a third to a half, maybe half of them. I'm not sure, somewhere in that range though. And they kept asking for updates. And I finally just kind of threw it on the table and said, guys, I want this integration. They've stopped responding to me. And we had like 8 people reach out to that company that day. And later that afternoon, I got an email from their product person saying, let's get this finished. And again, most of our listeners probably know, or some of our listeners know who we're talking about, but that integration is now completed. We've done a webinar with them. It's in our community. I'm using it personally. And again, like if we didn't have those 8 or 10 or who knows how many people kind of getting loud and throwing a little fit to get some attention, I would be very surprised if that integration ever got to the finish line.
Yeah, there's definitely kind of a David versus Goliath feeling to some of this. And, it's not just the AI tools. I mean, I think we have users to thank for connections to Schwab and connections to Fidelity and connections to LPL and like all of these various, massive custodial, like, multi-billion dollar companies because people are like, well, what about Quivr? Like, I love this tool. It needs some, it needs support. Can you reach out and talk to them? And so that's been really unexpected. I mean, I really thought that we'd have to like, beat down a lot of doors and go hunt these people down. Whereas because of our users, a lot of them are reaching out to us, or at least we're getting those connections and kind of getting a
We had
shoots and ladders. Like we're finding more ladders.
one of the largest firms on our platform just introduced us, right? We met with Fidelity, and I think I sent 15 cold DMs to various people at Fidelity trying to get a meeting, and nope. But it's money talks, right? So if that big firm wants an integration, we're going to get the introduction, and don't hold us to a timeline for that because again, it's out of our control to an extent. But I finally have an in. We finally have a rough draft roadmap of getting that done, and that wouldn't have been possible without that introduction. And then we actually had a prospective user who wanted to join Quivr, but their broker dealer, which is one of the 3 largest in the country, we weren't on their approved list. And rather than just telling us, I can't use you, see you, bye, he sends me an intro email to some VP there. And again, I'm going to have to hound that VP, but I never would have gotten that intro. And that broker dealer never would have had a reason to talk to us. And
Right.
now they do. And that's pretty cool. And again, like we have to thank our users, and in this case, even prospective users, for wanting to, more or less be our biggest cheerleaders and help us continue to, open those doors.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
But yeah, that's again, most of our ideas are coming from our users. A thing too that's really cool is most of our demos now, and for those that don't know, we don't really spend money on marketing. The last couple of years, we've been intentionally growing fairly slowly because my biggest fear is that we maybe grow too fast and then we can't offer that touch that we want. And then also if we grow too fast, I would be nervous about our product because we might that feedback circle, feedback loop that we get from our users. I don't want that to break down. So we have almost spent nothing on marketing except for a couple of conferences. But what's pretty cool is almost every demo we do, we ask, hey, like, how'd you hear about us? Like, we're a tiny little CRM. Nobody knows who we are, right? And almost all of the time, it's a forum. Whether it's XY's forum, Hyphon's forums, AGC's forums, there's just a ton of them. Like the one out in Seattle, I can't remember that one. Alliance for Comprehensive Financial Planners, that one. T3, right? All of these different forums. So we're not, sure, we're doing marketing, but most of our new users are coming from word of mouth.
Yeah, and I think like that indicates to me that users are happy, right? I mean, like it, you and I were both financial advisors, right? And so the desire to spend almost no money on marketing is like ingrained in our bones. I think, I mean, every advisor that I typically talk to, and you ask them like, what are you spending on marketing? Like the answer is always zero. And so like that issue aside, a lot of our new business comes from our existing users and stuff. So we have them to thank for that as well.
For sure.
Yeah.
Maybe it's probably because we just don't know how to do it. Maybe that'll be our next hire. We'll have to get a real CMO. But in all seriousness, though, thank you to our users and our prospective users. There's even one woman, I'm sure you'll know who I'm talking about here, who wants to use Quivr, but their broker dealer kind of it's a roll up RIA, actually. It's not a broker dealer. I don't know if you know who I'm talking about, but she's one of the loudest people in the forums, and she'll send us emails every couple of months, and it'll say like, I love what you're doing. I wish I could be on your platform soon, 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 soon. And she's great. Again, doesn't even use our system, not even on our platform, but in some kind of indirect way, she is in our community, right? Because she is. But no, it's pretty cool. But yeah, the users, you guys, we wouldn't have gotten the recognition of T3 if it weren't for this group, right? The Mighty Might, the best CRM, the best workflow engine, the XYPN Advisor's Choice. I should have recorded my wife's face when I got to tell her that we won that award, because it's like, I didn't expect to even get in, let alone win it. So that was really cool. And the XY, like those people, if you're an XY member, you're doing really good planning. And that means that this tool is helping you do really good planning, which is our entire objective. Help people who are doing real planning continue to do really good or better financial planning. So that was a really cool one to win. And then obviously most people know I launched my firm through XY 4-ish years ago. So it's kind of cool to get recognized by like my first peers, right? When I was jumping off the cliff to start my firm, when we had a 1-year-old, and we were, my wife was, I think, pregnant with number 2 or about to be pregnant with number 2 at the time. I'm terrified. First time in my life, I wasn't sleeping at night, that kind of thing. So that was really cool to win that. So again, thank you to our users for everything. This is really cool. Will, anything you want to talk about enhancements or awards? Otherwise, I do want to talk about some of the personal things that have been going on with the Quivr team because of some of this success. Anything else you want to add before I switch gears?
No. Let's jump.
All right. So we got to start with Ashley. Ashley's amazing. If you are a user of Quivr, you know her. If you're not a user of Quivr, you don't know her yet. She does everything. Like, she is insane, exceeding all expectations. I'm going to have to get her to sign a non-compete because my biggest fear is that one of our users try to steal her from us, and that is not going to happen. But if we look back, she's been with us since it was February of 2024, because she came to meet with me and Ryan, who, it was just the two of us at the time. And we were going to meet at my house, and I had the date wrong. And she showed up at my house, and I wasn't ready for her. Ryan wasn't there. It was a disaster. And she's leaving an incredibly safe job from the government. She worked for the sheriff's department, or in Minnesota. But it's like, oh, like, this woman is leaving the most secure and stable and most, regimented company in the world to come work for a guy that can't even keep a date on his calendar right. But the main reason she joined us was so that she could work remotely and that she could prioritize her kids. She's got 2 young kids, and her and her husband's biggest objective was to ultimately relocate to Florida. And I don't know what day this is going to get released, but it's May 28th right now. And Ashley and her husband are closing on their house in Florida next Monday. And that is really, really cool. Like really, really cool. And we're already talking about her role getting expanded, especially once her youngest goes to kindergarten. Never in my wildest dreams would I have thought that we would have been able to accomplish what we're doing to then enable her to make that move with us. Like I was worried we wouldn't grow fast enough and she'd get to Florida and she'd find a new job and then we'd be screwed. And in fact, the exact opposite is happening, right? She's excelling. She's kicking butt. She seems happy. I hope she's happy. I told her she has to tell me if she's not happy. But it's really, really cool to see that. So I hope she's not mad if I share that story. Also, Ryan, many of you know, some of you don't know, the lead developer is my brother, and he was the one that was crazy enough to start this with me. And him and I, we've had a lot of little things we've tried to do together. Because I mean, he's probably not probably he is my best friend, and we've always wanted to build something together. And to have a company where him and I are now building it, you know, obviously with you, with Ashley, but building this company together, and this is his full-time gig, has been for a while. It's fully supporting him. We're still cash flow positive. It's really cool because he's just happy. He gets to work on something he wants to work on. He's remote. He can still be the dad he wants to be. He's got 3 kids. I mean, I get to see his kids more, which is really cool. I live 7 minutes from him, which is awesome. And that didn't happen when we started Quivr. But it's just really cool, though, to see what this has done for Ryan, too. And had we not had this growth, I mean, when we started, Ryan was not doing this full time. He was moonlighting, maybe, you know, and then I think before you started, Will, he was about 3 days a week, 4 days a week. And then shortly after you started, he was able to do this full time. But I don't know, it's fun. Like we're having a blast. He's happy. We're happy. Ashley's moving to Florida. I mean, I'll let you tell your own story because you're here, but you pretty much called me out of the blue. Was it January or December, a year and a half ago, saying, Steve, I'm either going to compete with you or join you. What do you want to do?
Yeah, I mean, we connected. Yeah, and I'm sure you remember this too. I mean, we connected years ago over kind of that common love of Salesforce. And I remember getting like, hey, I want to show you like an early demo of Quivr. And I was like, well, here's all the stuff that I'm working on. Like, you know, we kind of had that show me your cards, I'll show you my cards, like probably 2 or 3 years ago at this point. And then we just kind of went in different directions for a little bit. And then, you know, I remember having this thing of like, you know, this is the direction I want to move. I feel like at this point I've got enough understanding of kind of some of the pain points of these advisors that I'm ready to, you know, take this forward. And I do believe that like we're stronger together, which is really where that came from. This, you know, this idea of like, okay, you know, we can build a longer table as opposed to just competing against one another. And it's been really fun to sort of watch Quivr develop with like, okay, you know, here's some of the stuff that was originally there. Then like, here's this other stuff that now we're adding in that, you know, and I'm sure you'll say this too. I mean, one of the sort of the jokes that we have about Quivr is like, if there's a really robust module, it's because Steve does that in his business. And we're starting to get to that point where like, now there's some stuff that's in there that Steve doesn't touch all that often, but it actually looks pretty robust because either users are asking for it or it was something that I was doing when I was tinkering with Salesforce and stuff like that. But yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, it's just, you know, one of the last companies that I worked with, one of their core values was like brain genius, do the thing that you're really good at. And I feel like Quivr is uniquely in that space as well, in that like, you know, you talk about how not everybody's a process junkie and that, you know, you and I are some of the, you know, for operations nerds that are out there and we're the weird ones, but yet like this is what I think we were supposed to do. Like this is what we were meant to do. And so that's been really fun too. Yeah, absolutely.
It's been a blast. And what was cool too is I remember when you called me, my wife and I hadn't moved yet. I was at my old house. I'm in my office, the basement bedroom that, you know, had an office, the bed and the exercise bike. You know, we all got one of those rooms in COVID. I remember walking around and we talked for maybe an hour because you sent me an email and you said, here's my number, call me, I want to talk about something. And I just like 3 years ago when I reached out to you randomly for the first time, that was what I did. Here's my email, here's my phone number. If you're willing to chat, give me a call. And you called me within 30 seconds, which I remember that I was like, dang, that was wild that he did that. But you did that. I remember I called you right away and we talked for 45 minutes, maybe an hour. What I appreciated about that call was you were very clear with what you wanted, what you needed, and what you didn't care about. And in that 45-minute call, and I was too, I hope, right? Like this is what we can do, this is what we can't do. We need it to be worth it for you, but you know, blah, 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 blah. I mean, we probably hashed out 95% of the partnership agreement for you to join us in 45 minutes. And it was because, I mean, I know who you are. I know the work you've done. I know the passion you have for operations. And then also your skill set complements mine perfectly. You have a different, I'm the surge junkie who wants 100 days off with his planning firm. You're not. You're the one-page plan. You've got experience with bigger firms than me. You understand flows better than me. It was just like this perfect compliment, but you're also a CFP. You've owned your practice. You've worked at firms. So you can talk advisor. And I don't know how many people there are in our industry that have that skill set. So it's pretty cool.
It's funny what a small, I mean, like what a small number that is. I remember, being in that XY planning Facebook group. I think there's probably 5 or 6 thousand individuals that are in there. Most of them probably being advisors in some form or other, and having this realization of like of the people that are vocal in that group, there's probably like 5 to 10 that really have a deep understanding of like what it means to tinker in Salesforce and to try and push this thing forward. It's a small number, but it's definitely something that I think there's a lot of desire for too, which is, that speaks to kind of why Quivr's gotten love from the advisory community, and why users value what's going on here is, early on in the process, like you and I are embedded in that community, whether we like it or not. Sometimes we love it, sometimes we hate it, but like that is our home. I remember, as an advisor, talking to some of these technology companies and being like, hey, I need help. What I've got out there is not cutting it. I need something that's just a little bit better, a little bit different. And feeling like, it was just down a black hole. Whereas I think a lot of these individuals, like they're interacting with us and we're saying like, I love that. We want to implement that. Like, tell us more. And that's sort of a unique experience in the technology community. I think part of it's just because, these aren't just users for us. These are our, colleagues. These are our friends. These are the people that kind of, you mentioned it earlier in this conversation, like it was your study group. It's the people that you kind of grew up in XY with. And now you're trying to kind of give back to that community through this thing. And so just overall, it's been such a kind of a magical experience because it allows for us to do what we love, but also give back to the community and try and help support the community, which means that there's individuals out there that are getting better planning. And for me, that's such a blessing.
Yeah, I won't say the numbers, but I did actually. I don't think I even told you this. I tried to figure out how much assets or clients are on Quivr, like how many people are getting served through Quivr users. And it was a big number. So that was pretty cool. It's like, man, when we push this workflow update and then how people can utilize Archr automations with that, it's like it's not unreasonable to think that there are potentially thousands of people that are not missing their backdoor Roth IRA because of that update. And that's pretty cool. That's
And I mean, I remember being that stressed out advisor, feeling like I'm going to forget stuff and I'm not going to remember, and some client's going to suffer. And like, for me, that's where these tools came from, was this concern over like, I'm not doing enough and I'm not doing a good enough job. I've got this imposter syndrome always knocking, in the back of my head. And I feel like that means we're helping other advisors let go of that stuff too, which I just love. Like, I love the idea that there's advisors out there that are sleeping better because they can rely on Quivr.
Yeah, it's fun. And then selfishly, every idea people give us makes the system better, which makes my job on my planning firm even easier.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's so exciting about this too, is like, this is just the beginning for us. There's so much blue sky.
I mean, that's a perfectly way. And one little more short story before we wrap this up. But I remember 3-ish years ago when me and Ryan were starting to build Quivr, he said something to me that he thought that it'd be a lot of work, like the first 6 to 12 months maybe. But he's like, yeah, eventually the product will be done. And we'll just more or less have it. And, whatever. Like, we don't need more fields. We don't need more modules. Like, whatever. It's just done. And man, that couldn't be further from the truth. There's no way we're ever going to be done with this, because a new tool will be created that people want us to integrate with. There'll be a tax code law change. There'll be a new CFP topic added to that we're going to need a module for, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So to bring this full circle, as much as we have been appreciative of the things that our community and our users and our prospective users have done for us, please don't stop. Please keep telling us what you want, because like Quivr it's never going to be done. We don't have personalities that will allow us to just stop improving we just don't. We love to optimize. We love to continue to tinker and to perfect and to enhance. So please, we are incredibly thankful for everything our users have done for us up to this point, but we know it's not perfect. We know everything can continue to improve. So, like, please, like, from the bottom of our heart, thank you. And then also the biggest request we have is keep talking to us. Keep telling us how we can make this better, because we love that feedback. Anything else, Will?
I think that's it. Yeah, just a big thank you from our end.
Perfect. And I did what you told me to do. I didn't mention any specific users. It was hard for me because every story I wanted to say that, but no, but that's a wrap. Obviously today's was a little bit of a different quote unquote product update. We spent time talking about where Quivr is, not necessarily where our, a specific enhancement of our product. If you're curious about why people have been talking about us the way they have, or if you want to see if we can put our money where our mouth is and continue to make these enhancements that we say we're making and see if we're actually listening to users as we think we are, come check us out. Come schedule a demo. Come hang out with me and Will for a bit and learn why Quivr is truthfully having the success that we're having.